We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.
I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. I have with me Juliette, Sicotte, Liberal candidate for the riding. You say the riding.
Okay, it's Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Right. And that's the strip down kind of along. I think I'm in your riding, actually.
Are you in South Kelowna?
I'm in off of Dehart and Gordon there. Because it's kind of like they kind of cut it up different, right?
They do. So It starts at the end of Lakeshore and balloons out to involve Southeast Kelowna and Gallagher's Canyon. Right. And then it comes down Lakeshore, and there's a sliver down Lakeshore, Pandosy Abbott corridor, to the bridge, and then it goes over the bridge into West Bank Kelowna, First Nation, West Kelowna, Peachland, and Summerland.
Why don't you start off a little bit and tell us about yourself, and why politics? Because this is the first I've heard of you.
This is the first time I'm running. My name is Juliette Sicotte, and I was born and raised in a little mining town in northern Manitoba called Snow Lake. Beautiful little community.
I worked in Thompson and Woboden.
I know. Everybody
in a mine,
has a
actually.
connection.
In Woboden, in a nickel mine, actually.
Did you work there?
Yeah.
My dad was a hard rock miner for 35 years.
Yep.
He was a diamond driller.
Nice. I was the controller at a remote mine, and I went to the Flin Flon mine, and I knew a couple girls that worked in Snow Lake too, because there was that mine there too, right?
Yep, HBM&S.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, it was HBM&S, and so my mom and dad had 8 kids.
Wow.
And raised
we had 7 in our family, so very similar. Yeah.
Okay. And raised them in a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. I don't know how we did it, but we got through. So from my dad, I learned of hard work and perseverance. Yeah. And from my mom, she instilled in me the progressive ideals that I still hold dear today. So from Snow Lake, Manitoba, I then moved up to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories.
Nikki lived there. Wow,
really?
We were following each other around.
People have connections to these two remote...
I think everybody should go just to do the tour, right? Yeah. I lived in High Level for a while, too.
Oh, okay.
Well, Thompson, High Level, Snow Lake, Flin Flon, all those places, Yellowknife, right?
Yeah, so it's the mining belt.
Yeah, for sure.
The nickel belt in Manitoba, and then, of course, with Yellowknife, gold. So I was there for several years, and that's where I got my start in fine art and sculpture sales.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I connected with my culture. So I'm Métis Cree, and Snow Lake is a mining town. I've never lived on reserve, but that's where I connected with my culture, was in Yellowknife, being surrounded by all this beautiful artwork and getting to know the artists. It was,
when we lived in High Level too, like all the girls had the jackets, those jackets with the big fur collars, and the mucklucks and all that stuff. We had all of that. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And then we moved to Edmonton, and then people started screaming at my kids and my wife for wearing it, and so we put it away. We still have it, I think, somewhere, right?
Yeah,
it's beautiful stuff.
It is, and it keeps you
beautiful.
warm. When I was in Yellowknife, it would get to minus 50, minus 55 with the wind chill.
Yeah, no, I've been there.
And I lived downtown and would walk into work. It was crazy cold sometimes.
I can remember like the white Sorel boots. I don't know if you remember those. Mm-hmm. And you walk in the snow, and the snow squeaks, right? Because it's so cold, it can't even stick together. It just squeaks. But the northern lights were coming down, almost like touching the ground, right? That was the incredible part, right?
We have the same experiences of Yellowknife. So I went, when I lived there, I had the opportunity to go to the top of Bush Pilots Monument, which is the highest point of Yellowknife. Yeah. And we had the northern lights coming down so far down, they were turning red, and you could hear them crackling.
Yeah, that was just incredible, right?
Yeah.
You got to north. You got to go to the north. You got to live in the north for a bit too, right? Like Bush Pilots. So you talk about that. I remember flying in like twin prop jobs into Thompson, and you're flying sideways. You can see the runway out the window. You're just like, how can I see the runway? Because it just, it's incredible.
It is. Yeah, up in the north, it's those pilots are pretty special. So from Yellowknife, I came to Kelowna on a 2-week vacation. And
that's most people,
right?
Same as us again.
I came on a 2-week vacation and decided I had to live here. So So I moved here.
Wow.
and started working in galleries here, and then started working for a Haida fashion designer in Vancouver, Dorothy Grant, and I managed her boutique and her career.
So why politics then all of a sudden?
It is something that when you're an Indigenous woman born in Canada, from the first moment you take your breath, you're a political person. There's, of course, with federal politics, Indigenous issues are federal issues. When I was working for the fashion designer, that's where I started to get involved with political people. We would have people from all over the country come and shop, and from all the different parties, from Conservatives, from NDP, from Liberal, everybody came and shopped at our boutique. And speaking of political heroes, I got a chance to meet Elijah Harper, and he encouraged me to run.
There you go.
And yeah, so when Elijah says run, you run.
There you go. And mine was Jean Chrétien. I think we said that before.
Yeah.
And we had him here at Level Up 2019. We had both Chrétien and Harper here. And I think people went to that event because it was on leadership. It wasn't a political event. And they talked about leadership because they ran our country for 20 years together. A lot of people went there thinking they were going to hate Harper or hating Chrétien, but most people came away and say, hey, those are two really good guys, right? Because I think, they did a respectable job running the country.
Yeah.
Different, they did different things and stuff like that, but I think that was a different Canada back then, though, for sure, too.
Yeah, and what I'm finding on the campaign trail is I'm talking to people from, again, all different political parties, and everybody, I'll say, in our community has been so polite and...
Well, that's the Canadian way.
It is. Yeah.
Especially if you go north, right? As friendly as it here sometimes, the north is just like 10 times that, right? Like High Level, Yellowknife, Thompson, Flin Flon. You know what I mean? Like everybody's your friend. Like absolutely everything. Well, whatever you have is yours. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's amazing.
Once you get out of the cities in the south and you start heading up north, you're quite remote and you're relying on your neighbors at all times because the weather can be so unpredictable.
What are you hearing as the issues when you're going to the doors? You're knocking on doors. What are people talking about?
So the 5-alarm fire is the Donald Trump threats of tariffs and our sovereignty.
Beyond that, though. Beyond that, because I know that's what the kind of the Liberals are running on right now. They're saying, but that's going away, right? Regardless, at some point that's going away. To me, the Donald Trump thing is kind of like the symptom, but the economy is really the underlying thing, right? Because if we didn't have a suffering economy, Trump would be just a lot of noise, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's the economy, and how do we fix that economy? And you're from Snow Lake, you understand that? So I'm going to ask you maybe a tougher question here, because both of us have worked in the resource sector. I started pulling boards on a green chain when I was 16 years old in the mills, and I worked in mills and mines and stuff like that. And I think part of that has been lost here in Canada. Like, we've kind of suppressed our natural resources because Canada is the richest resource nation in the world. And people that have went to the north realize that they don't put a town in Yellowknife. They don't put a town in Snow Lake or whatever because it's a great place to be. They put it there because there was mine there.
Yep.
There was a mill there, or you know what I mean? Some type of resource extraction thing was going on. And that's why.
Yeah.
That's why, Fort St. John is there, Taylor, BC, all those places, right? That I'm sure. Flin Flon because of mine. Like, that nickel belt you talk about, and, like there's a lot of nickel in northern Manitoba.
There is. And I think, there's a lot of talk about the energy corridor. And what Mark Carney is talking about is making sure that we keep environmental integrity and Indigenous rights across the country.
Yeah, I guess. And I know that you weren't in cabinet, so I guess, like the bigger things is like we have such vast natural wealth. And to a lot of people, they're saying, like conservatives would say, like we haven't been tapping that in the last little while. And to me, it looks like that too, being from the mining sector. I know how hard it is to get a mine permitted, like 20 years, right? It takes to get a mine. And I worked as a controller when we were actually ramping up a mine. And we were in production, we were just getting into production. And it's hard, right? There's so much stuff you have to do, right? It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody thinks mines make nothing but money, but like we were fighting for our next financing. You know how it goes, right? You know what I mean? Like it's either like, it's kind of like Alberta's oil boom. It's either like going crazy or it's like really bad, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and I think also the world prices dictate
for sure, commodity prices,
whether a mine will come online.
Yeah, commodities are a huge part of it, but our modern technology in the world requires a lot of minerals, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that cell phone that everybody wants is full of gold, silver, copper, silica, lithium, like all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. So I guess it's about finding balance for Canada, right? So, and I worked at that mine site too, and we employed a lot of local people as well too, right? And like Snow Lake, I'm sure, because that was part of our mandate as it's a public company, right? So make sure that we're training and employing a lot of people, right? So.
Well, what year was that you were doing that?
In the mine? Oh man, it's got to be in the 2008, 12, something like that. So in there somewhere, yeah.
And this was in Manitoba.
Yeah, in Thompson. Well, Bowden, which is an hour south of Thompson. Thompson was where the big Inco mine was, right? Yeah. So we had a small mine under a lake, Bowden Lake. Wow. Yeah, it was a small little community, actually. Hudson Bay owned most of the community, too. Mm-hmm. And there was a small population there, too, that we tried to put most of those people to work at the mine site, trained everybody, right? So it's really cool.
Yeah. And that's important, too, to make sure that local people are involved in it. And
Oh, we had lots of meetings, we had a lot of consultations and stuff like that, too, right? And making sure that people got first crack at, because there's a lot of training going into mining, right? You know what I mean? Like, you can't go underground these days, just, like the guy doesn't get hired and says, oh, you go underground tomorrow, right? No. There's a lot of work that goes into it. A lot of
safety,
Yeah, a lot of safety for sure. You've been underground?
I have, but just on school tours.
Scary down there, right?
It is so I was in underground in Snow Lake, and it's a little bit, the walls are a little bit rougher and the area is smaller. And then I went underground in Yellowknife at
a big mine.
Yeah, a con mine. And we went all the way up to the top of the tower and then all the way down. And when you get underground, it's almost like you're going through a tunnel in the city.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like a small town down there.
It
has lights, like our mine had lights when the machines are going back and forth. There's a green, like a stoplight and stuff like that too. Yeah. And some areas are so well lit, but one of the things they did for all the new people is they turn off your lights and then say, okay, wait for your eyes to adjust. And then they're just wait a bit, and they're just like, okay, they're never going to adjust. You're never going to see anything.
It's so dark.
It's completely dark down here, right? So,
So from Vancouver, and I've been in Kelowna now for 30 years. I have deep roots in the Okanagan Valley, and it's wonderful. It's so many Canadians have such a deep connection to Kelowna as well.
Well, I think a lot of people come here on vacation and then just like, oh my God, this is part of Canada. This is pretty surreal, right? And I went to Switzerland, took girls hockey team there, and spent 3 weeks in Europe, and we spent some time in Switzerland at a lake. This is very similar to that place. I can't remember the name of that lake now.
Yeah, we have a lot more in common with Switzerland than we do United States. That's for sure.
We don't have as much money as Switzerland, but hey. I wanted to talk to you about Bill C-18, and it's kind of a personal issue for us, I guess, but I think it's an important issue for democracy as well. The Liberal government introduced it, I think, at the request of a bunch of newspaper groups out east, to fight Meta. But it's kind of turned into kind of a disaster. The Liberal government put that into place. Since they put it into place, Bill C-18, close to 100 outlets have failed across Canada, including Bell Media laid off 4,800 people and said it was Bill C-18 related. The Kamloops is Sweet closed, Bill C-18. And we're struggling too. We're absolutely struggling because the Liberal government selectively funds some outlets and not others, right? So it's not a very fair process, right? It's in our mind, it's politically motivated decisions. So that's not really fair to media. And then, you're talking about selectively funding certain outlets, and then you have the other party saying they're going to defund, it makes journalists, obviously, that's not a great place for democracy.
Yeah, and perhaps that'll be reviewed as well. But
we try to get answers,
Yeah. Sure you have.
It's like talking to the wall. Like we've sent letters, we have letters of support, even from former and running this time Liberal MP Stephen Fear supporting us, right? We have one from John Rustad, we have one from Kevin Falcon when he's leader, from Renee Mayer, like all the MLAs. The city of Kelowna saying that Kelowna now should be recognized, and it's not. We have the most experienced newsroom in the Okanagan with Kent Mulgat and Steve McNall and all that.
And it's important, as we were talking,
for wildfires, and community safety.
Wildfire and community safety.
We're the only G7 nation. So I guess my question to you is will you do something about it if you get elected?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important that we keep our democracy safe and strong. I
mean, the media's job is to hold power accountable. I mean, that's our basic function, right? And if it's tough to hold power accountable if your livelihood's at stake, and if one party's trying to get rid of your livelihood, you know what I mean? Like it's not like they should be setting that aside, so that's not politically decided. It shouldn't be the Liberals or the Conservatives or whatever. It should be, I don't know, it should be outside of political decisions, right?
Yeah. So I remember decades ago people saying that journalism was in trouble, 20 years ago as well. But you've innovated though.
Yeah, and that's what so when government interferes, it ruins the innovation though, right? Like we innovated, we were doing really well because we understood social media and that. And all outlets across Canada, including CBC, lost half their traffic and half their revenue with Bill C-18 because the Liberal government who boycotted Meta, saying that that evil empire and all this stuff, now are spending money with their Facebook ads and all that stuff, including the Liberal government and the Liberal Party, because they said they now recognize how important social media is to news because they can't get their news on the platform because Bill C-18 doesn't allow it.
Are you hopeful with that?
You know what I mean? Like, it's hypocritical for them to say that they're boycotting them to support local journalism and all of a sudden start spending millions of dollars while media outlets still can't put their content on. And the money that they're giving to media outlets isn't enough, because if you look at Chorus's stock chart, they're just about the Walking Dead, right? They went from $19 10 years ago to 9 cents. They owe, over $1 billion in debt. They keep cutting. I mean, we've seen what they cut here, right?
Yeah.
Bell's cut tons, like everybody's cutting, right? 3 more outlets about to fail in the Lower Mainland, Glacier outlets. They're shutting them down May 1. Burnaby now, I can't remember the names of the other ones. But this is not healthy for media to be propped up by government and then living off crumbs. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just enough to survive for some of them.
Yeah.
They need to get out of the way of media. Just let media do its thing. CBC is a different thing, different animal, right? CBC is our public broadcaster, and I grew up with CBC. I like CBC. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I think they need to stay in their lane then too, right? Because all of a sudden they started saying, because they weren't supposed to take advertising dollars away from other media outlets, and all of a sudden they started doing. You know what I mean? They need to okay, if you're a public broadcaster, do that. And I think more of a national, provincial focus as opposed to like the local. They don't do a lot of stuff in local markets, right? And let local media outlets do that work, I think.
Yeah, and I think Facebook is the one that really did the pushback on our Canadian media.
We're the only G7 nation. Everybody else made deals. The Liberals went hard against them, and they made it a thing. And then we've done so many stories, and even with like media lawyers, and said this is a failed policy. But the Liberal government, under Justin Trudeau for sure, just doesn't know how to back down and say they made a mistake. And that's the the problem. Like, we've sent letters to Justin, who said, "Oh, I'll send it to Pascal." Pascal then sends it to this. You know what I mean? It just goes around circles, right? Like, nobody says anything.
Well, this is a new era coming in with the Liberal government. So.
Yeah, and I guess the question then would be like, you're a new candidate for sure, but there's a lot of the same faces though too, right? So I guess new direction though, right? Like
new direction, new vision, new skill set, new relationships that he has.
Better resume. Smarter guy for sure. Like there's no doubting that he's a smarter guy for sure. I mean, Justin was. I would say Justin Trudeau had a lot of people aren't gonna like this. He was a good speaker though. Like he was charismatic. He could talk. And I think when he first got elected, I mean there was a lot of hype about him, right? For sure.
There was, yeah.
And then I think the bloom came off the rose, though, right? So, I think the economy is a big thing for people, and I guess the worry of a lot of people is that our biggest asset, like Alberta's oil and gas, is our single biggest contributor to our GDP. It's our single big, like it's 90, if you combine Alberta and Saskatchewan for energy, those two provinces are the biggest contributors to Canada's GDP. And to a lot of people, including Danielle Smith and Scott Moe, they think the Carney Liberals are gonna follow through with that, keep 80% of it in the ground, and it's not gonna be good for Albertans or Canada, that because there's a lot of transfer payments that comes out of Alberta.
I think that it's going to take a while for a just transition if we do want to look at sustainable energy sources. It's not going to happen overnight.
So I got a good analogy for you, and if you think, because hockey, everybody, if you're Canadian, hockey's a thing, right? So if we think of Canada as a hockey team, Mario Lemieux, Bobby Orr, Wayne Gretzky, Paul Coffey, all those greats, right? There are LNG, there are oil and gas, there are uranium, our nickel, and all these things. And for a lot of that, under Stephen Gibault and Justin Trudeau, they've been put on the bench. And we've been playing our minor leaguers out there, solar and our wind. And they may be future superstars. I have solar on my roof. I drive an EV. I believe there's huge future for that.
There is, yeah.
But I don't think they can supplant our current stuff at this point in time.
No.
But I just think they were benched, right? They were benched under the Trudeau Liberals and not allowed to, because part of this why Trump is so scary right now is most of our oil and gas, our biggest export, goes to the U.S. because it's the only place it can go, right? Because we don't have a Northern Gateway pipeline. We don't have an East-West pipeline. Right. Churchill would be a great place to send oil to, right? You know what I mean? If that Northern Passageway ever happens, that's probably the most economical advantage that any nation would love. That's the most economic passageway in the world. If they can, use icebreakers and stuff like that.
Right. Mostly developed as well, that area.
Yeah, well, there's no Suez Canal or Panama Canal where you have to do the ships and takes forever to get through, where you just go through, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so how do we get where we can utilize, like Norway? Norway has a 300,000 per capita sovereign wealth fund because they have about 95% of their people are driving EVs, but they sell their oil and gas to whoever buys it. Do you know what I mean? They're selling their LNG, they're selling their oil and gas to everybody at the same time, because that's what they're saying. That's how because Norway's standard of living is pretty high.
It is, yeah.
And so Alberta is the only province that has a sovereign wealth fund because they have, the big surpluses with there, and plus they give a lot of transfer payments. So how do we make sure that we're utilizing that asset for the betterment of Canadians? Because think of all the services and things we could have, right?
Yeah. So I think everything's changed from when Trump came in with his second term, and I think Canada's realized that we can no longer rely on that status quo. We have to start developing our own trading partners and
trade between ourselves, like even the provinces,
exactly.
Right? Like holy cow,
interprovincial.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there, but I think I do believe, and I say this over and over and over again, Canada is the richest resource nation in the world by diversity. By diversity, I mean, there's some places that, Saudi Arabia has more oil than us, but we have mining. We have, our mining sector is huge, right? And I've done lots on mining too, and I've interviewed some of the bigger miners, and I've worked in a mine site. But a lot of our miners, the smarts, the people, and the technology go somewhere else because they can't get a mine built here in Canada. Do you know what I mean?
We have excellent technicians and.
We're probably the smartest people in the world. And plus, a lot of the TSX value is miners, but they're not mining here. They're mining somewhere else, right? They're mining in, Africa or South America or stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do we get them back here mining? Because we have some of the best people in the world when it comes to mining. You understand mining, right? You grew up in that world. Hardworking people, right? But the cool thing about mining jobs buy pickup trucks and houses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and raise kids.
And raise kids, because it's good money, right? It's good money, right?
Yeah.
And the community, it builds communities. Like if you walk into most hospitals, you're going to see donated by Kinross. You know what I mean? Like all these big mining companies do so much in community, right?
They do. And in Snow Lake, it was a wonderful place to grow up. Everybody was the same. Our dads did the same things.
Everybody had a pickup truck. And a house, right?
And a house,
You know what I mean? Everybody had a house and a pickup truck and a family, and they're going to hockey and they're doing their thing, right?
We all knew each other, and we all looked after each other.
But that's almost all of Canada other than metro centers, and we've basically, and I think that's where MPs can do a better job, especially in the local, like the smaller areas, is kind of like, you know, like when Chrystia Freeland was talking about how, you know, like, oh, she doesn't even need a car because she just, you know, rides her bike. Well, she's got transit, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't have transit in Snow Lake, do you?
Thompson.
And Thompson, right? So, pretty tough to get from the grocery store to your house in 50 below.
Mm-hmm. And I think also looking at innovations within mining as well to make things probably a little bit less costly to extract. So we have to look at a whole bunch of things.
For sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the miners are really moving towards green stuff too. I know I've interviewed quite a few of them, and they're using like electric trucks, self-driving trucks for that matter too, especially underground. They're trying to do a lot of electric stuff because obviously the fumes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
actually, you just brought back a memory when I went underground in Yellowknife. That was the first thing I could smell as soon as the shaft opened.
Yeah, so, you know, like the miners are trying to do their best, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've also made the miners really embarrassed about themselves. You can go to Vancouver and you can see that there's, I won't even say the names, but there'll be big companies and they'll have this big tower and have a little tiny name on the bottom, right? Because they don't even want to expose themselves to all this, you know, because like people have to realize that, you know, like responsible mining, like good regulations and that. And the good thing about TSX related companies that are, you know, like listed here in Canada, no matter if they go to Peru or here, they still have to follow the same environmental guidelines that are set out here. And we got some of the best environmental guidelines there is, right? So, and that's why people like TSX companies to coming in, you know, doing the mining in those countries, because they know that they're not going to, you know, exploit the kind of this stuff, right?
Yeah, and then just leave.
Yeah,
leave them.
And leave a big hole.
Yeah,
right?
leave them holding the...
What do you think, though, is, like, how do we've got this kind of divide, like we've seen with like things just recently, I'll talk about Buttongate, right? We've seen the buttons and that, like those dirty tricks and that, I think, and no party is innocent on those things. How do we get to a point where we respect each other and the ideals, where it's less divisive, where, you know what I mean? Because, like, you know, some people feel so justified to go after somebody because they feel like, you know, one party is, you know, like the end of the world and the other party is the threat to democracy. And, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. And I think this has really come to the fore from President Trump's first term. And when I'm talking to people, they say, oh, you're so brave running for federal office. And, and the people that I've been meeting, they're wonderful. Like it's so in some ways it's face to face and on the phone. People are fantastic. It's this online chatter that makes people think that's what politics is about, and it's not. It's about working together and coming up with solutions that will help your community. It's that simple.
Well, how about, like, there's more, you and I, there's more we have in common than we have different.
Absolutely,
do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there's more we have in common than we have different. I think we need to get back to that spot. Like, even if we look at, I drive a Tesla, and I'm not ashamed to say I drive a Tesla. I think they're some of the best cars in the world. But we have a faction out there now that think, you know, it's okay to burn one down because, you know, you're fighting the man or whatever.
In the United States,
well,
they're
even
doing
here,
that.
they in the Lower Mainland, somebody threw a rock through a windshield and injured a pregnant lady critically because they thought, you know, Tesla bad, right? Like, that's the person bought the car. They weren't making a political statement. They bought the car because it's, you know, like they thought they were doing good for the environment.
And I think that's the online influence as well.
Well, yeah, there's people that have definitely gone a little bit crazy. We're trying to keep these at 30 minutes. Where are we at, Rommel? Yeah, we got time. Excuse me, sorry. Maybe I'll give you a couple minutes just to kind of speak to the listeners as to what you'll do if you get elected.
Great.
Yeah.
So Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
It's a mouthful.
It's been a riding that has been conservative probably since 1972. So it's a very conservative area. I think with Mark Carney coming online and becoming the leader of the Liberal Party, what I'm hearing is a lot of people are thinking that he has the economic chops to get us through these next few years. People who typically vote conservative say that they feel a little abandoned by this current Conservative Party. They don't feel like it's that they belong to it. And then they look at Mark Carney with his economic background, and they feel like this is someone they could vote for. So when Donald Trump came in on his second term and was talking about annexing Canada, I started to get very concerned about our sovereignty. I love this country.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had to do something. I felt a responsibility and a duty. I've worked in the private sector for my whole life in small and medium-sized businesses. It's the backbone of the Okanagan and of Canada. So I'm looking to find supports to make sure that our small and medium-sized businesses are prosperous, and also to protect our natural resources in Kelowna. We're pretty much ground zero in Canada for issues related to wildfires, floods, and droughts. So we need to find some supports, get these in place, and make sure we keep our homes safe from natural disasters and from possible annexation.
Gee, I mean, on the annexation, I mean, I get that that's a bit of a liberal thing to kind of use for, like to get people fired up, but like the chances of that happening are pretty slim to none. We can just play a weather report every day, -40, -40, -40, and they're not coming. Like, when Chrystia Freeland, when she said that, tanks are going to be in our streets, I mean, I think that's, like, we also have to recognize that we live under their umbrella of NATO. Do you know what I mean? Like, NATO is really the Americans, right? I mean, they have the big stick, right? Like, in the north, our sovereignty is being challenged by the Russians and the Chinese, right? Mm-hmm. And the only thing that's up there right now is really the Americans, right? Because we have 40-year-old jet fighters, 40 years old, right? And half of them work. We have no nuclear icebreakers. We have no nuclear warships, and we have no nuclear submarines. We have 4 submarines we bought at a garage sale from the UK in 1990. Mm-hmm. So
I remember Stephen Harper proposed the Polar Eights.
Yeah. Why don't we have them?
I know. Why don't we have them now?
But I mean, to be fair too, like, he ordered those F-35s. Justin Trudeau came in, said no to the F-35. I'll never buy them. Then just a couple of years ago said, okay, we'll buy them. Right? Well, 10 years passed, and we wasted that time, and now they're talking about maybe not again, right? Where, like, most other countries are flying the F-35s, right? I mean, the Americans have superior technology even to that. But we have to recognize when we make the Americans out to be bad guys. I think Trump is easy to make a bad guy, but I don't think the Americans as a whole are the bad guys.
The people.
Yeah, the people.
Administration is moving in a direction, definitely. And it's finally focused on us. It's been focused on a lot of countries all over the world, and now he's turning it on his allies.
Yeah, no, it's troubling for sure, right? But I think, like, he's such a, like, he says stuff that is nonsensical, like, almost every day, right? Yeah. Like, every day is something nonsensical.
And it's the unpredictability that's affecting us.
Yeah, it's nonsensical for sure. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't make much sense, like, why you would, I mean, we stood with them in, World War I, World War II. Mm-hmm. We didn't go to Vietnam, but we went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of the work in many different places with them, right? Yeah. We took their planes in Gander in 9/11. Yeah. We did a lot of stuff, right?
And we've been good neighbors.
We've been good neighbors, yeah. And plus, we're good trading partners. And plus, our economies are so intertwined, right? So intertwined.
So intertwined.
And then that's why, to me, I think it's maybe a bit overplayed, because I think, like, if we listen to what he says and what the actions are, they're a little bit different. Because, like, a lot of stuff has changed, right now. And let's hope it doesn't, because I think our economies are so dependent, and obviously we're the small guy in this play, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not but what we do have is something that they need from us, is we're the richest resource nation in the world. Like, we are the richest, and we have to utilize that for the benefit of all Canadians, I think. Yeah. And I think, like, I think, they're really working hard on the auto sector, I think, trying to protect that auto sector right now. Yeah. But Scott Moe is feeling abandoned because of what's going on with the Chinese. We're not talking about the Chinese tariffs, because they're doing the same thing to us, right? Like, the canola crops are really hard to find canola crops right now. So, and I get that it's more political right now because it's expedient to use Trump as it's tougher to use China. You know what I mean? Like, but the Chinese are just as much a worry as what's going on
Yeah, we have
Trump,
we
right?
have it coming from all sides.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, we got to make deals, and like maybe we should be sending people, to different places. Like when Japan was here begging for our LNG, we said there's no business case for LNG. That's we're going to sell them hydrogen. Where is this hydrogen?
I think with Mark Carney, he's a pragmatist. He'll do what's right for the country.
Yeah,
and he's not a politician, so he's I think he'll look after our country and steer us through this time with all this unpredictability.
It's definitely tough, right? Like it's definitely made a lot of people unsettled for sure.
It is, yeah.
I do thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting
me. And I wish you luck.
Thank you.
And then if you win, we'll do a 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast.
We
can talk about Snow Lake and all those places.
Snow Lake and Thompson.
Probably know some people that you know. Actually.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.